And now, broadcasting from the top of the skyscraper that is the Markham Hall on the Rogers State University campus in Claremore, it's Green Country's most exciting radio show, Free Association. And now, here is the Fort Smith Fireball, your champion of chicken, and your deluxe dueling DJ, Mark Lane.
It is Free Association on 91.3 Real College Radio. I'm Mark Lane, and for the next 2 hours, I will play you the best in true alternative music, and I'll take your requests at 343-7913, or you like to do the email thing, requestline at rsu.edu, or do the MySpace and the Facebook thing and the Twitter stuff if you're friends with us on those various social networks. On today's show, I'll be talking about my car because I got it back and I drove it back to Arkansas. Saw the folks and the kiddies over the weekend. It was nice, and we'll talk some about that. And we'll also talk about various issues. We'll have jokes and, like I said, the true alternative music. So let's get it kicked off with Weezer with Ruling Me right here on Free Association. That was Superchunk with My Gap Feels Weird, and hopefully this joke will feel funny to you. Alright, so the traffic cop pulled alongside a speeding car on the motorway, alright? And so glancing into the car, he was astounded to see that the young lady who was driving was also knitting. Yeah, like knitting with the needles and stuff that your grandmother used to have. So I don't know which is more astounding, the fact that a young lady should be knitting or that she should be knitting while driving. All right, so, but, realizing that she was oblivious to the traffic cops' flashing lights and siren, the policeman rolled down his window and turned on his bullhorn and he yelled, "Pull over!" So the young lady yelled back, "No, it's a scarf!" All right, well, coming up next on Free Association, we have Samantha Crane with Equinox right here on 343-7913 is a request line if you have a request. You heard the Black Angels with Entrance Song, and then before that you heard Samantha Crane with Equinox, and before that you heard Superchunk with My Gap Feels Weird, and you're hearing now Mark Lane on Free Association on 91.3 FM. Oh, man, I really thought I was not going to get my car out for this weekend. The weekend of Saturday the 2nd, Saturday the 2nd, Sunday the 3rd. Because after having my car for 2 months, the mechanic finally called me, and he said, "Oh, yeah, we got your car running." "Oh, yes." But he said, "Oh, you got to still do a couple of things because it's still running rich." I'll have more details on that. And so he said, "But you will have it tomorrow." Okay, so I'll have it on Friday, October the 1st, finally. That didn't take me all millennium. So he told me to call him Friday at 11 a.m. I called him at that specified time, and he didn't have my car. I was like, what the heck's going on? And so I had to go the whole day thinking, oh my gosh, I might not be able to go to Arkansas this weekend because I lined up everything at work. I took care of everything at work so that I would be able to go to Arkansas over the weekend when I had my car. But everything was lining up to where it might not happen. So I felt like Marty McFly in Back to the Future at the Under the Sea dance, where his dad wouldn't go dance with his mom, so then he started so Marty McFly started to disappear before his very eyes, like his hand was becoming transparent. That's how I felt. And I equally felt like Marty McFly whenever his parents got together and then he came to life with that at the strum of that guitar chord. That's how I felt too whenever I got my car. It's like, I'm alive. Now I'll get to go eat the pizza back home. I'll get to go pet the kitties, and oh yeah, I'll get to go see my mom in inpatient physical therapy. And the small topics, very small topics indeed. I had this dream over the weekend that I said something on RSU radio, and they fired me for it. Well, you can't be fired if you don't get paid, but they threw me off the radio. They said, "That's it. We can't. You can't do your show anymore." I don't know what it was that I said, but I remember it vividly, and I was taken off the air. But that would be a good topic for Culture Shock on 91.3 FM. Dream analysis. That's Jukebox the Ghost with Summer Sun right here on Free Association. I'm Mark Lane, and my summer fun was cut short on Thursday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. when my 91 Camaro convertible RS with a 3.1-liter V6 broke down on the side of the road on US 69 south of Pryor, Oklahoma. Yeah, I was an hour away from Claremore. I was an hour away from work. I was an hour away from normalcy, but instead I got cast into the pit of uttermost darkness by not having a car. So we'll talk about everything from why it broke down to how they fixed it. And here's how it broke down. I was south of Shoto, a little north of Wagner there on 69, and I noticed my car, it was humming along at 70 miles an hour, and then it started to buck. It started to buck like that, and I thought it was a transmission thing. But it wasn't the transmission at all. It was my engine. It was having troubles. And the trouble was a nodule extending out of the intake manifold what had cracked. And it had cracked and it was leaking coolant. And so my engine has some sort of device in it to make sure it will not overheat, so it shuts down the car before it can overheat. So that's what happened. So then my car broke down on the side of the road. Then some nice people helped me. We already talked about that. And then they took it to a shop here in Claremore. And that's what the guy did at the shop that had it for 2 months. He first replaced the coolant thing extending out of the intake manifold. And then he tried to start it up, and it would start, he said, and it would idle rough, and then it would smooth off, and then as soon as you touch the gas, it would die. So he couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. He replaced the fuel pump. He replaced the fuel pressure regulator. He replaced the fuel injectors. He replaced the fuel filter, and it would still start up, idle, die, and then that was it. And so then finally, at the beginning of September, the guy takes it over to another friend of his who does some kind of auto electric work there, and he had him look at it. And so this guy, it started for him, it idled, and then it died. But actually it was idling better. So then he thought, well, maybe it's got to be the computer. So this guy goes ahead and he replaces the ECM, and he replaces the oxygen sensor on the thing. And then all of a sudden, it starts up. And it'll idle, it'll do everything, and it'll drive. Well, it does, and the guy told me this, so I didn't get ripped off. But he did tell me this, that it will buck at first, kind of like what it did before it broke down. You know, it'll buck and then it'll die sometimes, but usually it'll buck and then it'll smooth out after that. And so yeah, the car is fixed, but I still have that one little problem on there, which is it'll buck a little bit and then it'll smooth off after that. It's safe to drive. I've had it break down, so-called. It actually shuts off, but still you can start it up and it won't choke on the gas or anything like that. It'll start up as though nothing happened. It's the oddest thing in the world, and I definitely do want to get that fixed. But I still think it's safe to drive, safe to take to Dallas at the end of the month, and I'm thankful to have my car back. So, yeah, and then the RPM gauge. The RPM gauge is off, but that happens with Generation 3 Camaros, I've read, so that's no big deal. So that's a story. That's the story right here on Free Association. Karen Kilowatt will have the story on the concert calendar coming up later in the show, so you'll want to hear that. But you want to hear MIA with It Takes a Muscle right here on Free Association.